What's up guys, June here, and in this video we're going to take a look at all of the equipable items in the pocket slot and what the effects are and what are going to give you the best results for your overall DPS. So let's do this. The first two items we're going to talk about are the Scrimshaw of Cruelty and the Scrimshaw of Elements, which correspondingly work for ranged and magic. And these are flat damage boost Scrimshaws, which will improve your damage by 5% or 6.67% if you have the superior version from player-owned ports. For those of you who do have access to these by doing the player-owned ports minigame, these will definitely outclass any DPS bonus from anything else that you can equip in the pocket slot. However, for those of you who have to buy the inferior version from the Grand Exchange, there are a few drawbacks. It's a little bit expensive, and if you're trying to get to the point in player-owned ports where you can make these, it does take up to a few months if you haven't started this previously. And finally, the biggest drawback from these, in my opinion, is that there is no corresponding version for melee. For whatever reason, Jagex decided to make the corresponding Scrimshaw for melee the Scrimshaw of Vampirism, which allows you to siphon a very small amount of any damage that you deal to enemies back and restore it as HP, which is totally useless for improving your DPS at all, and so is generally something you want to avoid if you're doing bossing at all. The remaining combat Scrimshaws are aptly named the Scrimshaw of Attack, Ranging, and Magic, corresponding to melee, ranged, and magic styles, and the effect of these is to boost your accuracy by 2% or 4% for the superior version. And really, these aren't super useful Scrimshaws. First of all, they're completely useless on any enemy that you can get 100% hit chance against, and even if you don't have 100% hit chance against them, they're weaker than several other alternatives. So, for example, the Scrimshaw of Ranging is always going to improve your DPS less significantly than the Scrimshaw of Cruelty will. The Scrimshaw of Magic will improve your DPS less than the Scrimshaw of Elements will, and a Scrimshaw of Attack will improve your DPS less than an attacker's Insignia will. So the only circumstance where I would recommend using any of these Scrimshaws would be using a Scrimshaw of Attack on a boss where you are with a large group of people who are all using melee, because, as I'll talk about in a few minutes, the attacker's Insignia doesn't work well in groups because multiple people using it will cause the bleed effects to cancel each other out. This leads us right into the attacker's Insignia, which has the benefit of being a lot easier to obtain and also cheaper to maintain than the Scrimshaws. Its effect is to randomly trigger a bleed for 500 or 50 damage depending on whether it's charged or uncharged that hits 4 times before canceling. The effect of this is a lot less consistent than the Scrimshaw of Cruelty or Scrimshaw of Magic, which applies its effect to every single attack, but on the whole you'll expect to deal about 5% more damage with this, putting it on par with the inferior versions of those Scrimshaws. The major benefits of this is first that it works for melee. In fact, it works for all styles, so if you are hybriding or tribriding at some boss like KK for example, this is a really great choice, and it is also your best DPS choice for melee since there is no melee version of the Cruelty or Element Scrimshaws. It does, however, have two major drawbacks. The first is that the improved damage comes from a bleed, which activates as a damage over time effect, and like all damage over time effects, anytime it is reapplied, it cancels the old effect. So if you're on a team with a large number of people, it activates so frequently that it's actually going to cancel the vast majority of the improved damage. So having 10 of these on a team is only going to contribute about as much damage as having 2 of them on a team, so I wouldn't recommend these for large group bosses. And the second drawback is that the bleed effect will heal next on the blood phase, though this shouldn't matter much since you mostly will be using ranged and magic at next, and the Scrimshaw of Cruelty and Scrimshaw of Elements are better choices there anyway. Finally, there's a horde of other junk that you should pretty much never be using, but I will discuss it for the sake of completeness and for some niche uses. First, there's the Collector's Insignia. It has various skilling effects that you're more than welcome to use while you're doing skilling, and it also works like a double ring of wealth, which a lot of people tend to bring to bosses thinking that they're going to get more frequent rare drops and a lot better money from that boss. However, the effect of the ring of wealth is absolutely tiny, and so even doubling that effect is going to make almost no tangible difference in the amount of money that you make from the bosses, when compared to the fact that using a Scrimshaw of Cruelty, for example, you're doing 6.67% more damage, meaning your kills are 6.67% shorter, and therefore you're going to get 6.67% more kills and therefore more loot per hour. You're actually going to make way more money using a better DPS Scrimshaw. Next is the Defender's Insignia, which contributes a negligible amount to your armor rating and you should pretty much never be using anywhere. Then we have the Healer's Insignia, which has a flat 10 boost to Prayer, which you may find useful some places, though I wouldn't recommend this anywhere that you're trying to do decent damage. And while using that, food heals slightly more, though that effect is going to be pretty much negligible. There's also the Holy Wrench, which has a similar effect for Prayer Potions, Super Restore Potions, and Prayer Renewal Potions, causing them to heal slightly more prayer. And finally, the Mask of Sliske, which has a small chance to summon a Shadow Wight, which will engage in combat with whatever you happen to be fighting. However, it deals absolutely negligible damage. Thank you guys as always for watching. Hopefully this video cleared up some of the confusion around the different pocket slot items and what they actually do, because there's really not a lot of transparency about that from Jagex. I hope that you can apply this new information to doing better DPS at bosses, and remember to like, comment, and share this video with your friends if you think that they can benefit from this, and hopefully we'll all get a little bit better at DPS together. So, I'll see you next time.